Jerry, I believe we are ready to go now.
Okay, great. So welcome to the September edition of the Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission meeting. Before we call the meeting to order, I'll let Porter introduce the housekeeping message.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. I just want to remind people that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Want to remind everybody to mute themselves during the meeting unless they are speaking to minimize any background sounds. The chat function for this meeting is disabled. All chats will go directly to me. Please remember to state your name when you speak for the benefit of those participating remotely. And the city reserves the right to mute people or turn individual videos off to minimize distractions during the meeting if necessary. And hang on, I'm still letting some things in here. And now I'll turn it back to Jerry.
Okay, great. So we will call the meeting to order. It looks like it's 7:35 p.m. And we'll do a roll call by voice. So I will, let's see, I'll just call you all out as I see you on my screen. So we'll start with Christina.
Here.
Dina.
Here.
Mary, it looks like Mary stepped away. Jordan.
Here.
Marlo.
Here.
Joshua.
Present.
And Mary.
Here.
And Jerry is here. So our first order of business is to approve. We have two sets of minutes to approve. I guess we'll do them separately. The first is the August 11th meeting minutes. Any comments or additions to those before we have a motion to approve them?
Just a quick note, thanking Curry because they helped me finish the meetings this month. I had a lot of job applications and interviews that I was balancing, and they would not have been done in time for this meeting without Curry. So most of the meetings, most of the regular meeting minutes are actually they're doing. So
Great.
Great teamwork. Thank you both.
Yeah, appreciate that. Any other comments? All right, I move to approve the minutes for the August 11th meeting.
I second.
All in favor? Say aye. It appears to be unanimous. Porter.
Got it.
All right, and then our special meeting that we held on August the 18th for the letter. Any comments on that before we approve those? All right, seeing none, I move that we approve the August 18th special meeting minutes as well.
Second.
Dina seconds. All in favor? Aye. Seeing hands raised from everyone, that also is unanimous. Porter.
Great, thanks.
All right, so moving along through the agenda, it looks like we don't have any new business. I'm, maybe a little disappointed we don't have a new mural to talk about this month, but we've certainly had our run of those.
And Jerry, if I may interrupt, I have heard that the Cottons mural is already underway after it was approved formally last night by the City Commission. And I believe the Penn Loft murals are due to get started very soon. So lots of new murals happening in town.
Yeah, I have enjoyed coming down 9th Street from west into downtown. I've enjoyed seeing the one at the flower shop. It's nice. So.
And on that note, I just watched the videos for the mural discussion because I was not in town that evening. And I didn't know if there was anything we could do to make that process more seamless. Like it's a very lengthy process. And I didn't know if we needed to simplify something on our end because it's so great to see these murals, but I want to encourage it and not get people really bogged down with having to, I don't know, defend. I don't know, just there was a certain feeling that I had from it. I'm like, oh, I wish we were more supportive or welcoming to the mural process.
Yeah, I really appreciate that and agree with that sentiment, Marlo. I mean, the easy answer for us is to say, well, if all applicants show up with their paperwork all filled out, it's really simple and easy and everything. And but I think, as was evidenced by the one last time, where I really felt like the paperwork was completely done, and we obviously had some really experienced folks, but yet there was still considerable debate around that. So maybe we could, think about how we could streamline it a little bit. I mean, we're never going to get it perfect. Murals are, as we all know, the flavors are endless, and the type of places where they end up are, there's a different story to all of them and everything, and trying to make a unified process is difficult. It's not to say we couldn't do that. So Joshua, I see you have
I just wanted to state that I think Marlo's right. I think there are a lot of times when murals are presented in our neighborhoods, we have things that are not city official that come into play that really kind of bog down some of the conversation. And I don't think it's the city's place or the commission's place to kind of get into those weeds, other than to outline some sort of just simple, clear guidelines that, as you know, we put check marks by, which I think we did in one way or another. And so I'm glad to have that conversation, because I hope it helps to refine that application process. Because I want murals on every building and throughout the town. And as long as we just have a very clean and clear guideline process that ensures that those boxes are checked and the content is appropriate, as opposed to, vulgar, then I think that's important. But I think it should be expedited in some ways, as Marlo said.
Yeah. It's difficult, right? I mean, having been involved in writing that process a few years ago, it's difficult to imagine all of the different scenarios and stuff. We had the library one, which kind of, in a lot of ways, because it was donated and it was on a public building and stuff, it really, there was a lot of stuff that was outside of what we had planned on or tried to cover. And so anyway, I agree with you. And it's, I think if we've aired it all, it's been on the side of trying to cover all the situations. And what happens then, as you guys know and are pointing out very well, is that the process is a little cumbersome. So I don't know. I don't have any specific ideas on how we can improve it, but I think it's worthy of considering, so that we can promote that type of stuff. So.
Porter, did you have any thoughts on that? What we might do? Because I did feel too that it takes over so much of the meeting when there's this deep level of discussion on content, and then I feel like it leaves less time to do other business for the commission. So I didn't know if you had any advice or direction we might go in.
Honestly, I have mixed thoughts and opinions. One is that you all don't see what type of dialogue is happening before you get a proposal at a meeting. I'm actually working with an artist currently that is a recognized artist, but I don't know has done many murals. So helping him walk through the process, helping him with the contract. I think, from my perspective and bias, the contract is really key. And I think that's really helping a lot of people, because I think people were going into these murals with property owners very naively, frankly, and knock on wood, I don't think it's caused any great problems, but frankly, from a legal perspective, it could, because murals last a long time and there are copyright concerns and that type of thing. So, on one hand, having a fairly rigorous process has its merit in helping artists really think through exactly what they're doing and the potential repercussions of painting on a physical piece of property. That said, I'm sure it would be possible to comb through it and figure out ways of streamlining it and just making it more efficient. The other thing, honestly, keep in mind too, how many mural proposals have we had before May? I think I remember one from like 2016 that I don't think ever actually occurred. So it's a both and. But I would imagine it would be something that could be streamlined in some way. The other thing is, now that we've had people submit regularly, I have a stronger template that when an artist reaches out to me, I give them that template, which helps them just make sure they hit all the marks on the checklist. So, I am working on streamlining it with artists as well. So it's kind of a both and we have to remember too, different artists have different levels of experience.
Yeah.
If I could add, as one of the newer commission members, I feel like the application process is really pretty lined out, pretty detailed, covers a lot of the bases. And I think from the proposals that I've been involved in, it seems like most of the artists, if not all, have aligned to those checkpoints, so to speak. And I feel like it's really very complete and pretty easy to follow.
No, I think I was just gonna say I think Dina makes a great point, and it, as a teacher, I think about rubrics, and I think about learning outcomes. Like, you meet that mark or you don't meet that mark, and there ought to be unquestionable, undeniable checks that go along with that says that this person is approved or is not approved based on clear black and white sort of like clear data. And I think Dina notes this too, that some of those, especially more recent ones, have been extraordinary. And some of the newer artists, as Porter points out, they might need some help along, and they can, engage more like earlier to make sure that they get those and meet those same benchmarks. So I think too, we do have a strong application process. It might be refined here and there, but then we just need to end discussion when it needs to end and move on to the business with the commission.
Can I add one more thing?
Go ahead, Dean.
So Joshua, thanks for bringing up the analogy of a rubric. So you have to remember too that it doesn't have to be perfect to get a high score on a rubric. So I think also we maybe don't have to be worried about, making a mistake. If it looks like it's good, we should just go with it and be good with that.
Yeah, I think the danger, or maybe not the danger, but maybe what we've experienced here over the last few months since we've had so many of them is, I think we as a body need to be careful to apply. We have a checklist, right? And there's a contract and stuff. I think we need to be sure that we're applying the same standard, the same interpretation to each of them. And it's difficult to do. I'm not saying it's easy, but I would say some of the heavier debates that Marla was pointing to earlier, sometimes have to do with whose neighborhood the mural's in and what emotional connection you might have to that thing or whatever. And I know in the case of the library one or the pollinator one, I mean, those are some heavy. There were a lot of emotions tied to those, and the debates for those were more than one meeting. and yet our checklist was the same and the contracts were the same and so on and so forth. So I think this body, in order to facilitate the process, as Marlo was pointing to, and to streamline that and not, consume, entire meetings and stuff with it, is I think we need to pay attention to our application of the standards that we've laid out in the process. Go ahead, Joshua.
No, it's a conversation we have often in academia and at high school in particular, because we have some, just certain issues with regard to supervisory authority and HR. But there's a difference between equal and equity. And to apply equal standards to all things, especially in art, is problematic because it doesn't take into account all those variances, all those variations that can impact such a project. But just as long as we're equitable, that everybody's fulfilling, certain responsibilities, whether in written or verbal or presentation form, that's fine. We all get to weigh in on that. And so I think that could help expedite the process by which we're not holding everybody to some rigorous sort of crazy standard that's not appropriate for every project, for every artist, but that it's equitable for each in their given space, whatever that might be.
Anyone else on murals and our policy? All right, so the next order of business is old business, which is, let me make sure I'm not skipping.
Actually, Jerry, hang on. I see a name on our guest list that I don't recognize, and I just want to make sure if that person has public comment to give them an opportunity to comment, as long as it's not something on the agenda. And they may not want to, but if you want to offer that. Yes,
so you're right. We have a spot here for public comment for things that aren't on the agenda. So anyone have any public comment?
You can raise your hand or just turn on your video if you want to make a comment.
Since we see the name, can we just say, hey, Gabriel Lehman, hey, welcome. You have something to say? You have something to contribute?
And they may just want to listen, which is fine too. Absolutely. Welcome. And thanks for listening in. Okay, so hearing no public comment, we'll move on. And the next order of business is old business. And so maybe I think we could all appreciate an update on the ODSE, and then I think we also have stuff to talk about with respect to the Art and Culture Crossings program too. But we'll start with the outdoor downtown sculpture exhibition program.
And thank you. And these may end up blurring together at some level because they are sort of consecutive programs. But basically on the outdoor downtown sculpture exhibition, I have been in process of getting contracts out to the 3 artists that submitted, Dave Lowenstein, Tim O'Brien, and Will Vanderson. And I want to get their contracts in place before we start sort of figuring out what exactly we're doing. I think they all have existing work. Dave wants to do some light boxes in store windows. So eventually, and he's talked about ideas of where he would do that. I have to work with Sally Zograi and perhaps others on Mass to try to figure out what's available for that. But that's actually fairly straightforward, I think. And then Will Vanderson is the sculptor who's been involved in our program before with the large galvanized sort of bulbous sculptures. And he's got 2 interesting sculptures, and we're just trying to figure out where we might be able to put one of his. And then Tim O'Brien has a carved wooden sphere. I have not seen it. He has a video, but for whatever reason, the video hasn't come through on email yet. So I haven't actually seen it in action, but I trust that it's a good thing. And Marlo has high praise for Tim. So I look forward to working with him on that. The other thing I plan to do with the ODSE is get back in touch with my friend Eric at AutoCast, so that we can use AutoCast for these 3 sculptures, make sure we get up to date on whatever sculptures are still out in the public realm, and then add our Art and Culture Crossing artwork, so that all of that is included in this online tour platform. And I suspect that will cost somewhere between $500 and $1,000, depending on how many pieces we do. So I plan to work on that. And I'm still holding the possibility of adding artists to Arts and Culture Crossings through ODSE, if that makes sense. So kind of combining budget and efforts potentially to do that, depending on what kind of response we get for that as well. So that's in a nutshell. And then I'm hoping we'll have something ready to go for the October final Friday for ODSE.
Will we, maybe I missed this quarter and I apologize in advance if I did, but I mean, will we get to see are there, I don't know, PowerPoints or whatever of the proposed pieces?
They submitted photos. I haven't assembled those yet, again, because I'm getting the contracts in place. I can email that to you and certainly make that a presentation at our next meeting. And by then I may have clarity. So what they did was they submitted portfolio images. So I didn't know exactly which, I still don't know for sure exactly. With Tim, it seems pretty solid, but with Dave and Will, I'm not exactly sure what their pieces will look like. So I just have samples from their portfolio at this point.
Okay. Yeah. If we could get some insight into that, that would be great. Now, I did want to, I don't want to side, track the conversation, because I know these two things are tying together and there's stuff to be talked about with the Art and Culture and Crossings program thing. But I did want to talk a little bit, or toss out to the group. I mean, we had 3. And I know that we have limited funding and all of that kind of stuff, but my concern is that's how many applicants we got. And usually we have the opposite problem with our grants and with a lot of, I don't know if we actually have the opposite problem with the ODSE, but we certainly have more than 3. And so I just wanted to pause for a second in case someone wanted to have share some thoughts on what we might do better to, I don't know. Again, it's not like this year, or obviously not last year, we have all this extra money that we're not giving out because we don't have applicants. That's certainly not the case, but 3 is a really low number. So
I was worried about that as well, Jerry. I just know how popular that program is, and I wasn't sure if it was due to time of year. Are people expecting it? We usually do it so the big launches in the summertime, just having that different cycle. Was that part of the reason we had lower submissions this time?
That's my suspicion, yes.
Is there a possibility of doing a second call or an incarnation to get a couple more? I love that we've opened up with that Art and Crossing program, so it's not like it's all taking place on October final Friday, but it's spread out throughout the year. Is it possible to get some more applicants that could be part of that cycle as well?
That's my thought. We could conceivably do another call, although that's somewhat labor intensive. I think it would be easier to do it through the Art and Culture Crossings program. And then that way that also helps cover the grant match. So that's why I'm saying these 2 programs, ultimately my hope is that they will basically merge. And that we'll be able to do a broader range of art in the public realm. And so I think at this point, I'm just sort of going with the flow, given how wacky COVID and everything else has been. I'm happy actually thus far. This seems to be working out pretty well, and I'm seeing ways that I can dovetail these two programs and that they are mutually beneficial.
Okay. Yeah, so that's great. And we can just keep an eye going forward. We can keep an eye on ways that we can we can open that opportunity up as, as we know more about funding, and also as the art and culture crossings things develop. Okay, great. So specifically on the arts and culture crossings program, do you want to talk about, I apologize for not being available for the kickoff, although I was available for all the selection stuff, which was really, really fun and exciting to see so many talented people interested in that position. But maybe Porter, you could speak to how the kickoff of that went and what we have ahead of us with respect to that.
Yeah, so we the committee selected Alicia Kelly to lead the program coordination. Alicia is very excited, and I've met with her a couple of times. I've been in communication with her, and we had a meeting with our partners last week so that Alicia could meet everybody, understand where her partners are, and it's a great brain trust. That she got a lot of good feedback and ideas on things. And then on my side, I'm working on the agreement with her, an independent contractor agreement, which I'm humbly reminded that city contracts are never simple. So I actually have a meeting with our risk management person tomorrow to see what insurance is required and what isn't required, because I don't want to burden Alicia with, too many insurance costs or that type of thing. So we're still working through that process, but I believe she's working. I've given her sample RFQs. So she's developing a call for artists for this. She understands that this is like ODSE at this point, going to go in its own flow to some degree and will, happen this year and next year. We're realizing we're running out of time as far as November and December being the two big holiday months. And I believe Final Fridays actually this year will be impacted by both Thanksgiving and Christmas. So trying to hit those Final Fridays, we just took that pressure off, frankly, and are looking at, depending on what kind of artworks get selected, we may implement over Final Fridays at any given time or wait till spring. So it's really up in the air at this point. And I really appreciate all of our partners. Marlo's been a great help. Brittany at the Spencer, Tiffany at the Chamber, Sally Zograi. Who am I missing? There's been actually quite a few people. Oh, Kim Anspach, yes, she's been great too. So we have a great crew of people eager to help Alicia. And so, yeah, once we get her up and running, we plan to do a more formal announcement and celebrate the fact that we're doing this and that we have Alicia on board to do that. And, I want to, while I'm in a public meeting, we had a much bigger response of candidates to that than I really expected, and a range of different experience levels, all very good. And so my hat's off to everybody. I spoke to a few people who were curious about the position and did apply. And so we have, we've alerted everybody, but it was a great turnout. So that's nice to know that we have so many people interested in this type of, programmatic sort of opportunity.
Yeah. And they were having been involved in the interview process. They were just fantastic. I mean, we were just after the very first initial meeting with each one of them. I think the whole crew of us that were interviewing folks were excited because we knew we were going to get a good one, no matter what. I mean, it was really an impressive group. So I was really encouraged by that. Okay, so do we have any committee updates? I know there's probably not been a lot of activity, but any specific committee updates? I'm not seeing any here. Okay. any word, let's get back to our favorite sad topic of the last 2 years. Any updates on budget stuff, Porter, with respect to our grants and that type of thing?
So the 2022 budget passed Tuesday night. So that's in place. And my understanding is that we have the same budget amount, same amount budgeted as last year. It stayed in the TGT fund. I am working with finance to figure out where we are on that. I haven't given up on the community arts grants, but now I have a bit of a challenge in the practical side. If we were to implement those, and I'm still waiting for some level of confirmation, but given that we're in September, that gets a little tricky timing wise, because I'm almost positive the TGT funds can't roll over from year to year. So we can't expend this year's funds next year. And as we all know, the TGT funds are still a guessing game. I think we were coming out of things are looking positive, but with COVID cases increasing and other things, we just, it's very difficult to prognosticate how things are going to play out over the next 6 months. But anyway, that's where all that stands. So I'm also aware, sorry, I was just going to add, I'm also aware that we need to do the Phoenix Award, and I need to get that process underway as well.
Yeah, so before we talk about the Phoenix Award, which, and thanks for bringing that up as well, can I just toss this out? I mean, honestly, Porter, if there's any glimmer of hope in the TGT, that we might have access to some of our budget for that, would it be possible? We have arts grants from, not this year, but ones that were submitted from before, and it seems to me that we could do an expedited award of those, understanding that maybe some things have changed and people may have moved or, whatever. But I mean, I understand your problem logistically would be, even if we had the money, it's hard to get it allocated and spent, between now and the end of the year. But my point here is that we do have applications, and we have applications that we've actually reviewed and everything from before. And would it be possible for us to, if there was some amount of money to award some, even if it's just a few, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I actually went back and was reminded that it was, the March Cultural Arts Commission meeting when COVID started, that we were reviewing the community arts grants, and that's where things stalled at that point. So I went back and looked that up. There were 10 applicants. I would have to go back to those applicants and see where they are. One challenge, I think, and actually I'd love Mary's feedback on this, is, they were applying for community arts grants for very specific programs. And so in the municipal world, it's, you hear about grants and you have to have a shovel-ready project. So that's sort of my question is, do people have shovel-ready projects still in the queue? For instance, just coincidentally, Theater Lawrence applied for a community arts grant. Mary, do you remember, was that for your theater show? I can't remember.
The shovel is in the ground. I think it was a grant for the John Brown project.
Oh, okay.
Which we are opening Friday.
So I don't know.
Watkins might have had one in there for that as well. I can't remember.
I think they did.
No, because Watkins got a TGT grant. So they did receive their TGT grant for this. So anyway, and I know that a couple of these folks, actually, Rex Sandquist had applied again for, I think, his public art effort, but I know Rex and his wife have left Lawrence. And so I imagine he would abandon that. And I know other people who have applied are now in full-time positions. So I don't know if they're doing the same thing. So I had a similar thought. We've got this. It's actually been vetted through our scoring system. The only thing we haven't done is deliberate. I could go back to these groups and check in with them and see that if they would still want to consider the grant. I love this idea, frankly, because I don't have a lot of staff bandwidth to implement a full-blown program, but maybe this is a very efficient way to do it since this was already in the mix. But I want to get people's feedback on that. Is this equitable? Is this fair?
I think it's a great idea because I worry if we didn't do it and we waited and we kind of stumbled across the proposals and then having to coordinate getting all this stuff done. I worry that we would stymie out and lose our funds for the year. So I'm definitely in the favor of just moving quickly. If this is the fastest way to get some money to some arts organizations to do some programming, with the option for them to modify a little bit, like let's say Theater Lawrence, they've already started their show, but can they use it for some supplementary programming? I just feel like let's ask those people those questions and see what creative ideas they have.
And I need to check with finance. I suspect that if we fulfill the grant requirement in this fiscal year, it doesn't mean that the program necessarily has to occur in this fiscal year. But I need to double check that.
That'd be great. I just feel like we have so much pent up. There's a lot of need out there, and this group is, I think with our letter and so forth. We've really felt like our hands are tied, and if there's any relief in that at all, having those already queued up, where applicable, it would just be awesome if we could expedite those and get it done in this year. So yeah.
Now, would that money come out of, would come out of this fiscal year as opposed to the fiscal year that was just approved? Is that correct?
Correct.
Well, it would be a shame to leave money on the table.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure people are clear, and I know we have people listening on YouTube. There's not abundant money on the table. And so, this isn't a situation where money's just sitting there. But I have talked to finance, and I believe we can do this. So I agree. I don't disagree, Mary. I just want to be clear. This is, TGT is a unique funding source.
Right.
I have a small update. I did speak at not this Tuesday's meeting, but last Tuesday's commission meeting. And Brad Finkeldye brought up our funding coming from TGT. And I thought it opened a window because the city manager said he was kind of unclear, where those TGT funds are directed from that unmistakably Lawrence part of that presentation that took place. So I wonder if there's an opportunity here, as we're probably not looking forward to, we've already been approved for this year, but looking forward to the next fiscal year. Can we really dig into that uncertainty and what's happening there and maybe get some answers? Because Finkeldye seemed like he was actively interested and wanted to maybe get to the bottom of it and see what possibilities were around.
I suppose that's up to this body if we continue to bulldog that issue. But yeah.
And with the next budget cycle, which frankly, that process does start sooner than later. And I do want to say Marlo did a great job reminding the commission, the contents of the letter and the discussion that has occurred. So I appreciate your speaking up on that. I'm not sure how the strategic plan is going to affect how the budget plays out. TGT is notwithstanding, still a viable topic, but how the budget is going to play out with strategic plan is to be seen in the next cycle.
I also wondered with rescue funds, like if there's any rescue funds that could be attributed to our TGT funds, or I don't know, something, if there's any opportunities that might come up if we stay ahead of the game. I felt like we were behind the game, and like I didn't speak up to that very last meeting, and we wrote that letter very late in the game. And so I feel like if, like Porter just said, if we can get ahead of this process, as people are starting to think about that following year, it'll be advantageous to us as a group. Because I always feel apologetic. Like anytime anyone's asking me one of the community art grants opening up, and I feel like a state of apology, and I feel like I want us to be a little bit more forward thinking, getting ahead of the curve and finding ways that we can help steer the ship instead of just like being part of just handed down decisions that we hear about and then reacting to it. Like, can we help be part of the conversation of where strategic funds and the economic strategic plan, where they'll be placed?
All right. Anything else on our funding or grants or our programs? I'm excited, Porter. I appreciate you checking into that for us. And I would be happy to, for us to pull those applications back up, and once maybe you find, maybe we can, which ones are in town, or, once you touch base with them or whatever. I don't know where the flexibility lies, but, if there were, ones that rated high with this body, if it didn't take too much time and risk, us missing the funding or whatever, if we were able to let people be a little bit agile in how they applied that from their original thing, so that we could make it happen and get that, get those resources out there to support those grants. I think that would just be great.
Let me, I'll reach out to these folks and perhaps have them revisit their application, just from, that they don't have to rewrite an application, but just take a look at it and see if it's still viable or if they need to tweak it in some way. And, but we do, I'm actually pulled it up. I have the scoring from that cycle that was already done. So it's an interesting opportunity. Let me call people and see where things play out, and I'll keep you all posted, and we'll go from there.
Great. Anything miscellaneous? We're sort of at the end of our planned agenda, but
I have one bit of exciting news to share. I'm still in touch with my peer in Kansas City, and of course they've been doing a huge art call for artists for the airport, and they just released their list of artists, and I was very, very happy, and I sent an immediate email to Mona Cliff, who is one of the selected artists for the Kansas City International Airport, which is very exciting.
That's fantastic. I will tell you, we've been following that here at our house. My son, my kindergarten age son, is fascinated with the floors at KCI, and which I know, Porter, you had a hand in some of that stuff, and he's very interested to know what we're going to do art-wise in that new airport there, and he's also interested to know whether any of the floor concepts are going to be included in the new place. So.
Yeah, and I don't know that. That came up before I left 5 years ago, and I don't know what if there was a solution to that, whether they could cut out some of those floors and do something with them. I don't know.
Well, I'll just say woo-hoo for Native artists.
Yeah.
Doing some awesome stuff. We've been doing it for centuries. We're glad we're getting it recognized in some awesome areas and some major places. So that's great news, Porter. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Mona's really put herself out there, and it's paying off. So I applaud her personally as well. But I agree with you entirely.
Oh, and let me not avoid acknowledging not just Native artists, but also women artists, Native women artists who are doing amazing work that we should appreciate and understand and think about and promote. They do great work. So thank you again.
Can we, other than just doing it right here, can we do a recognition of Mona for her, for that achievement? Can we write a letter or something? I don't know.
I think Hong is another Lawrence artist that was accepted into that yeah, airport beautification. So that might, if we're doing a letter, we would include her too. She did some incredible work. Yeah.
Who?
Hong, she's a board member at the Art Center.
Oh, great. I didn't realize
She's
that.
fabulous. Yeah, she had an exhibit at the Smithsonian a few years ago. She does a lot of international exhibitions. Hung Chung Zon, she's wonderful.
Oh, good. I didn't realize she had Lawrence ties. And yeah, several artists that I know from Kansas City are on this list too. It's quite a diverse list, which is really exciting to see.
No, I think it's perfectly reasonable for the Cultural Arts Commission to issue a letter, just generally congratulating not just Hong and Mona, but them in particular. I don't know. Maybe there's some other Lawrence folks who could do that, but I think if we could issue just a congratulatory letter, that's our hub too. That's our airport too. So if we can just commend them for producing great works and making it readily available to the international travelers that come through KCI, I think I'd be supportive of that and help with that initiative.
So anyone want to make a motion that we write congratulatory letters to Lawrence artists who were selected for the airport project?
I would make a motion not to commend Lawrence artists, but all the artists who are contributing to KCI art projects. That's what I would do.
Would you have us write? I don't know how many there were selected. Would you have us write? I think there were 30 some.
No, well, if there's 30, then I think we can write one letter.
I was just thinking of more of a personal recognition from this body to individual Lawrence artists.
Well,
I'll go with however you guys feel it.
Well, I'm just thinking we are selected, appointed, or approved by the mayor of the city of Lawrence. Let's recommend that we publicly publish a letter commending all of that art by all of them in one letter, and in appreciation of its diversity and its vibrancy and the fact that we all travel through there. I just want to modify, so I will make a motion to write one letter commending and congratulating all of the artists who are contributing to the KCI project. And that's it.
Good second on that.
I second.
Jordan seconds. All right. All in favor? Aye. All hands. Okay.
So I think from here, Porter, you can either, I guess, have yourself or your staff draft a letter or share names, something.
I think we, since we made the motion, we should draft a letter. Let's don't put that on.
I'm just saying we need some names. I don't want to exclude anybody. So
Okay.
I would love I would be happy to initiate that letter and do that, but I want to make sure to not exclude. It would be the worst thing possible to exclude any contributor to that project. So,
All right. So we're gonna ask Porter to get the official list of artists, and then this body, and we'll let Joshua, because his words are wonderful. We'll let you draft that congratulatory letter from this body to those artists.
Yeah, if you can, I wouldn't get too verbose, but on behalf of the Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission, congratulations. Maybe 2 or 3 sentences if possible, and then we can put it into a letter. And I think I can probably get the list of artists. And I'm actually thinking in this day and age, it's probably okay we can make a PDF letter, but then actually email it. But I do like your idea for us to give congratulations to all the artists. You're right. It's our airport too. So I think that's really a sweet gesture.
Yeah. I also like it because it, we have percent for the arts here in Lawrence, and it's something that this body has been, promoting and heavily involved in, and for the airport project, which is massive, obviously, to, and even though it's in Missouri and Kansas City, for them to recognize the same thing, the importance of art and its place in those, highly traveled areas where people experience Kansas City from, all over the place. It's really cool. The commitment to art. We want to promote the commitment to art, right?
I feel like all of the social issues I wanted to address in the letter have been negated.
You've been stifled.
I mean, particularly with women of color, artists of diverse backgrounds. I need to do that in 3 sentences.
It's a task.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
You're going to test your talents, Joshua.
Hey, I can write a sentence that goes half a page. I don't mind. I can do that, no problem.
I wonder, what about sending like a little guest column to the Lawrence Times? They publish those from community members, and I could see them loving this because it highlights local talent. I love the angle of celebrating diversity, female artists. And I think that'd be an excellent guest column.
I mean, it's an international airport, right? That's critical. That's crucial. That's amazing, and we have to exemplify that. Yeah, absolutely.
Any other miscellaneous items for tonight's meeting before we adjourn? All right, hearing none, I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All in favor? There you go.
I see every hand raised in affirmation, so it's unanimous.
Excellent. All right, appreciate
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for serving on the committee.